The foot-tapping anthems, the beats, the iconic beginnings. Music draws you in. Let's dive into the melodies that shape our lives. A journey through the symphony of your mind.
Welcome to Your Brain on Music, a podcast that asks the question, what really happens in your brain when you listen to music? Here's your host, Anthony Cirillo.
Thanks, Jim Nance, for that great introduction, and welcome everybody to the podcast, Your Brain on Music, a show that explores what happens in your brain when you listen to music. We are excited today because we're starting our first artist series with Sage Stream Artist. We'll have a little commercial about Sage Stream in our podcast a little later on, but it's a live stream interactive music network. We have over 120 artists. And it happens that today I have one of my great colleagues, Nick DeMatteo, on. He's also a substitute host for me when I cannot do the shows, and so he's well versed as a podcaster. But Nick is a singer, songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, music producer, and sound editor. His band Rec has released over a dozen albums, and he's written and produced for several films and shows. He's also a podcast producer of Music Is Not a Genre, of which I've been a guest on YouTube and all the major streaming services. You can hear Nick's voiceover work in several commercial and web spots and see Nick's acting in films such as The Many Saints of Newark. Originally from my neck of the woods in Philadelphia and South Jersey, he now lives in New York City. And you can find all about him at Nick DeMatteo, DeMatteo.com, and all his links will therefore be available. Welcome to the show, Nick.
Hey, good to see you, Anthony. How are you?
Yeah, it's been a while, and I appreciate you being on. So, essentially,
happy to be here.
Yeah. So, essentially, what we're trying to explore with our artists during this artist series is a little more about your introduction to music and the things that have meaning and passion in your life around music. So, let's just start about you telling us a little bit about yourself.
So I grew up in a musical household. My dad has been a musician since, I believe he said his first performance was the age of 5. And he was on the television shows and did rock and roll tours and had singles, and one of them charted. And so then he graduated in a way to clubs and playing as a solo artist. And so I grew up in a household where music was ever present. And his main gig was as a cover artist. And when I was younger, I love that. I saw him a million times. But when I was a teen, I said, I want to be in music too, but I want to do my own music. So I had been writing songs. I wrote my first song when I was 6 years old, and started recording them in my teens in some studios, and then self-recording, and that's kind of where things have gone since then. I've just, songwriting and singing and producing have been my passion, ever since I was probably 14 at the latest.
Sure. And so what instruments? What is your instruments?
So I started on piano. My dad was my teacher. And then I picked up the acoustic guitar, which I was not great at the time. So I switched to electric guitar, which opened up a lot for me because it's a little easier to play. And then later on, much later on, I picked up bass. And that happens to be the instrument I'm playing the most in the bands I'm in right now. I fell in love with it, everything about it. So that's kind of my main, performance instrument at the moment. But when I'm recording, I'm playing all the instruments. I just started doing drums. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't call myself a great drummer, but I'm serviceable. And of course, singing is my top instrument. So.
Sounds about how my path went. I was guitar first. All the bands I played in were bass, and I eventually became the lead singer who happened to play bass. So same path. So what makes you passionate about music?
I mean, first of all, it's growing up in the household, my dad showed me, and through his performance especially, how much it can bring people together. It's just incredible. As you know, growing up, not really being fully aware of where people come from or how they think or believe, none of it mattered because we were all together in a room listening to great music by a great artist. And my passion comes through that kind of, I always say in my podcast, a music conversation, communication, like all of that stuff, connection. And when I perform, absolutely, that's the objective. But when I write, it's even more so. There's a need to express certain things that I'm maybe not that great at verbally. Give me a chance to write it, and I'm okay. But in music, things come out that I would never have been able to express otherwise. So it's just this world that goes even beyond language. It's universal. It just connects everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. So have you done any performing, and if so, how did for older people, and if so, how did you fall into that? Because obviously Sage Stream is a platform that was developed for older folks and caregivers, and a lot of our artists sort of have that bent.
Well, my dad has done a ton of nursing homes, and so when he would discuss how much it brought them to life, and we're talking in person, so you can actually see and hear them, and the idea that music can bring people to a state of consciousness in an older age that they wouldn't otherwise get to. It can pierce through dementia and things like that. It's just amazing what music can do for people. They can remember lyrics from their childhood and they can't remember what they ate yesterday. And it's just that idea. And I've done some of that a few times here and there in the city, but then connecting with you and knowing that there are people out there watching and commenting and all of that, it's a great feeling to know that people who may not even be able to leave the place they're in can have this amazing, performance piped into them and enjoy it right where they are.
Yeah, absolutely. So can you share a personal story of how your music has affected? It doesn't have to be a person with dementia or caregiver, but has affected someone. Anything that top of mind comes, that you can think of.
The first thing that comes to mind is I wrote this song many years ago called "On the Way Down," and I've been posting and reposting and kind of sharing older material recently. And a couple of years ago, a guy I knew back when I recorded it, and it was brand new, commented on a post and said that song helped get him through medical school. And which is interesting because it's a pretty sad song, very mellow and very yearning to fix a relationship and connect with somebody, and you're trying to make amends and all of that stuff. But there was something in there that spoke to him that maybe he got a different meaning from it that actually maybe was soothing to him and helped him through his very difficult schooling.
Absolutely. So, the original premise of our of the show is to we were going to take an iconic song per week and kind of dissect it from various viewpoints, and we're going to still stick to that. But to really get the great perspective on that is we need a neuroscientist or two to kind of weigh in as well as a musician. But kind of along those lines, everybody has kind of an iconic song that they remember, or a certain song, if it's played, immediately takes you back somewhere or has some real impact in your life. I guess the bottom line is I'm asking is, what's your iconic song choice and why?
Well, this is the second time I've been asked this, but it's the third time I've thought of it because it's almost a question that Stephen Colbert asked in his questionnaire thing. And I was always like, if I was ever on that show, I need an answer for that. And I'm not sure what it would be because my brain goes everywhere. So it could have been Beatles. It could have been a song of mine, a song of my dad's, or U2, or any of those. But the song I've always landed on is a song called Lovely Day by Bill Withers.
Yes.
It's beautiful. It's one of those. There are songs I love that I don't necessarily need to hear again. This is a song that anytime it comes on, I'm just going to listen to the whole thing.
And why is that? How's it make you feel?
I mean, there are plenty of songs that do their best to try to make you feel happy, and depending on your mood, they might work. They might not work. Lovely Day, I could be having a crappy day, and I will feel what this song is expressing from the very beginning. There's a heart to it, and when you listen to the lyrics and hear that there's a bit of maybe struggle or conflict within the lyrics, but the answer is always looking at this person you love and saying that's what makes this day a lovely day, and the way the music is, and anything that has funkiness to it always gets my insides going too.
Exactly. And so that's not a new song, right? So why do you think songs like that endure?
I think it's this mix of simplicity and complexity in the sense that when you hear it, you understand it right away. But if you keep listening to it, there's more and more that you discover. And it's a goal I have with my own music, whereas I don't want to make things so complex that it takes you 10 listens to figure it out. But I do want to make them complex enough that if you listen to it 10 times, you're still into it because there's something else you're discovering there. And you can't get over the fact that every single thing Bill Withers ever did just came straight from his soul.
Absolutely. And it is a layered experience. It's kind of interesting. And so you kind of hinted to the fact that that kind of songwriting influences your songwriting as well.
Yeah. Oh, yes, absolutely. I mean, from the sense of anything 70s kind of soul and funk, I've woven into parts of my music, or the idea that he found a way to express something universal by making it personal. And that's, I think, one of the best ways to write a song. It's not the only way, but it's one of my favorite ways.
Yeah. And you kind of alluded to this, but the fact that the funkiness of it contributes to the memory, having, you being able to remember that. Is there anything else about the song, in its instrumentation or structure that kind of strikes you?
Well, I love a song that has a distinctive bass line. I love a song that has horns. I'm a big fan of horns, big, old Chicago and bands like that. But there's, and yes, anything that has a beat that in a sense is almost mimicking like the human heartbeat and all of that. But there's the pre-chorus. When I look at you, the world is all right with me. Those chords are not simple. It's one chord over a different bass note. And when you try to break it down, because I've done it acoustically, you're not just playing a C sharp minor or whatever it is. I don't remember the key. It's like two to three, pieces of chords layered on top of each other. And right at the time when he's getting to a point where he's expressing how the struggle is going to resolve into this beautiful chorus. It's a perfect set of chords for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, thank you for that and sharing. It's hard to hone in on the one song, and don't ask me to do that because I've not prepared myself to be the one who is being interviewed, because it might change on any given day. But I could tell you, just listening to music, and we listen to music a lot in our household. In any given day, there'll be 3 songs that come on. You just stop in your tracks, and you could remember, where you were or what meaning it has for you. And now this message.
Introducing SageStream, a dynamic platform offering live, interactive, real-time music video streaming tailored for older adults. Here's how we elevate the experience. Enjoy a rich variety of live performances, complemented by rebroadcasts and a comprehensive archive of past shows. Access over 100 top artists from around the world, including sought-after talents like Ben Morrow, guitarists for icons like Cher and Lionel Richie. Explore a wide range of musical genres such as jazz, rock, blues, classical, standards, opera, and beyond. Engage directly with artists through song requests and personalized acknowledgments, fostering connections through chat and text interaction. No hardware necessary. Simply sign in with a username and password from any device or smart TV, ensuring hassle-free accessibility. Keep your loved ones connected and engaged, combating isolation and fostering a sense of community. Elevate their quality of life with exciting and uplifting musical experiences that bring joy. Senior living providers offering SageStream provide many benefits. According to a University of Michigan study, 4 in 5 older adults watch musical performances on the internet. They report stress relief, relaxation, joy, improved mental health, memory stimulation, and enhanced motivation and energy. SageStream saves planning time. It is a powerful sales tool and boosts Net Promoter Scores. Having SageStream readily available proves invaluable in various scenarios, such as when entertainers cancel, during health emergencies, and fulfilling challenging time slots. SageStream, where music meets connection, enhancing lives one tune at a time.
You mentioned kind of the Colbert questionnaire, as they say, and that's I sort of took some of the inspiration for this next section of the podcast, what I'm calling my lightning round. So Connie Tomaino, who I'm actually going to be speaking to next, is co-founder with Oliver Sacks of the Institute for Music and Neurologic Function, of which I have the pleasure of serving on the board. And she has a book called Music Has Power. And it's basically a layperson's music therapy guide. Any person could pick this up and learn how to use music in their day-to-day lives for health and wellness. But she outlines ways where caregivers or anybody can hone in on the music soundtrack of their life. And of course, I've prepped you a little bit with some of the questions that she has in her book that help, for example, a caregiver who wants to put a custom playlist together for mom or dad to kind of hone in on what that playlist looks like through these questions that I'm going to shoot at you. And then in our daily lives, there's behaviors we have every day when we wake up or when we're working or before we go to sleep. And, how does music influence or contribute to any of those situations? So I'm just going to throw them at you, and you've prepped, so I'm waiting for the answers. So A, do you have a favorite type of music?
Well, so my first answer was to this was no, because if you listen to any of Rex's music, it goes everywhere, and that's because my tastes go everywhere. But then I thought further, because I like to answer questions, and what it is any music, and it doesn't mean I don't like music other than this, but for me, the favorite is any music that emphasizes the song over the performance is music that I love. That somehow emphasizes the integrity of the song, no matter who's singing it, original, cover. That's my favorite type of music. Got it.
What music did you listen to when you were young? You were exposed to a lot with your dad being a musician.
Yeah, and he had a turntable, and he'd put a stack of LPs on there, and so it's interesting because I do remember a ton of the things he played, but I also remember that he had a Latin jazz on top of a classical, and he loved old, he had every single Beatles album, and he loved all the standards, the Great American Songbook. But for me, when I think young, I think teens, when my own mind awakened and I was making choices, and that's Prince, that's U2, that's the Violent Femmes, that's The Cure, that's the beginnings of techno music and hip hop. It's this stuff that has become what I do now because I lived through it.
Yep. And I'm a little bit older than you, so I go back 10 years from there. So
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. So did you have a favorite singer or band growing up?
Well, Beatles number one, and then I would say U2 is a close second, and Prince would be right behind that.
Yep. Love U2. Love the guitar playing on U2. I love to do those songs because they're just fun to play. Did you have any experience singing in choirs or in church or anything like that?
Well, I sang choir in high school. I was in the oratorio choir in college. We did a lot of the, like Bach and the masses there. We actually did a mass written by Dave Brubeck, and he and his trio performed the mass with us. So
Oh,
that was
wow.
an amazing experience. Yeah. And then since then, I've done, the Ave Maria at various weddings or, funerals. And my dad sings in church every weekend. So when I go down to see him, he'll invite me and we'll
Sure.
sing together.
Yeah, yeah, whether or not this is pertinent or not, but this is one of the questions in her book. What religion or denomination? I'm guessing you were probably Catholic like me, but did that influence in any way music in your life?
I mean, I think so because there was music at least half of the masses I went to when I was a kid, and at the time it was either the traditional, whether you mean early 20th century or even earlier, or it was an era when they were doing a lot of kind of, granola acoustic songs and all of that, and it was cool that during that time, and maybe it's the same now, there was such a mix of music even within a Roman Catholic mass.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah. So obviously you're from New York. So do you like Broadway shows, musicals, classical? You're exposed to so much culture there. What do you tend to enjoy or go to when you have the chance?
Usually it'll be a band I've followed, I want to see, but I've seen, my wife and I talk about how we have not seen half the musicals we want to see. But of the ones I've seen, more recently, Hadestown has been amazing. But I'm a big fan of Avenue Q from the 2000s, and just amazing. But you got to go back a little earlier, and you're talking like Sondheim, I revere. Les Mis was a huge one for me when I was younger, and when I was even younger than that, to me it all started with West Side Story.
West Side Story. There you go. Did you have any favorite TV shows growing up? And can you remember any TV show themes that as soon as you hear them, it takes you right back to the TV show?
Well, I'm a big TV fan, even probably more than movies. So I'm not going to tell you all my favorite shows. The list would be too long, but the themes that absolutely take me right to that, and I'm going kind of from decade to decade. The 70s, Welcome Back, Kotter. Can see it when I hear it. It's a great song. Cheers from the 80s. Can't really beat that as a theme song. Friends from the 90s. The theme for Curb Your Enthusiasm makes you laugh even before you see the show. It's perfect. And then there's a newer show called What We Do in the Shadows, and my wife and I are absolutely obsessed with that theme song. It's amazing how perfect it is, and it wasn't even written for the show.
Wow. I'll have to check that one out, but I like the way you took us through the decades. Do you remember your first concert?
It would be my dad for sure. And as far as a big concert, I think the two answers would be my dad was friends with the guy who played Eugene in the original Grease cast. And I got to sit backstage and watch Grease from behind the curtain there. But I would say, as far as concert, it was U2. When I saw U2 in Philly on the floor,
Oh, wow.
That was probably more of a religious experience than going to church.
Yes. Well, yes. My wife and I are going to go see the Eagles in Vegas at the Sphere in September. So I'm hoping that reaches those heights as well. So do you like to dance, and do you have a favorite song to dance to?
Well, for a lot of years, I was a secret dancer, and then I got remarried recently and danced like crazy. And some of my friends who've known me for a while said, "Oh my God, I didn't know you can dance." I'm like, I didn't know that either. But to me, anything I will make up a dance for anything that has a beat, whether it's slow or fast.
I love that. Are you into classical music? And if so, any particular composers that you enjoy?
My favorites would be Chopin. just as a pianist. It's just, you can feel it while you're playing it. Bach, and to a degree Beethoven and Mozart, but then from the last century, Aaron Copland just takes me away every time I hear it.
Awesome. So you mentioned dancing and weddings. So what song did you dance to at your wedding?
Well, my first wedding, I actually danced and sang to the Beatles' "Oh Darling," and I kind of sang it, to my then wife, and got on my knees and the whole thing. But this second one, almost everything was a danceable song, but I remember Dua Lipa in particular, because my kids are really into her, and the fact that we're all into her was a way that we connected.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you still have any records, tapes, or CDs?
Yeah, I have them all. I gave away a large part of my CD collection when I moved a few years ago, but I still have at least 600 of those.
Wow.
And then I have maybe 200 or so LPs, and then probably more cassettes than LPs.
Yep.
Yeah,
I still wish I had the record albums, but all right. Yeah. Now this is the true lightning round, and answer the ones that you can. So What music do you use to wake up to, if any?
None. I either wake up naturally or I use an alarm.
Okay. Do you have any pets? If you're walking them or taking care of them, any music?
Yeah, Olga is our dog, and no, that's my time to take an ear break, because I do so much music at home. It's nice to just be out in the world, more peaceful,
Okay. How about when you're working out?
I do workouts from a couple different sources, and they have music on there. And the one is it's from like Britain and Australia, and I like that because it's music I don't tend to hear. But the other one is from right around the corner, and we do like online, workouts with them, and they do their main thing is new remixes of old music. So they'll do like a dance version of Cyndi Lauper's "Time After Time" or something like that.
Yeah, there's nothing like good music when you're working out. That's for sure. How about in the car? You listen to music or podcasts or what? Or anything?
I do both.
Yeah.
But yeah, I listen to everything. But the music, when I have to drive my son back to Cleveland to move him into school again, and usually what I'll do when I'm alone and coming back is I'll go through catalogs of bands that I love that I haven't heard in a while. It's sort of like a comfort indulgence, like Chicago, for example, going back to their first, like 8 or 10 albums.
Yeah, exactly. Loose track. Chicago Transit Authority.
Yep.
Yep. Well, I learned how to play bass from Pete Cetera, just listening to all those lines.
Oh yeah, awesome.
Your work is music, so I'm not even going to ask you that. If you're on the computer or just doing work on the computer, do you listen to music?
Not usually, but if my wife's in the other room in her office, she's got something on, I'll listen to that.
So when your kids were younger and you were taking care of them, any music that you share with them or sang to them or anything like that?
Well, there was all those at the time, the VHS really of like Baby Mozart and Baby Bach and all of those we did. And then they started coming out with CDs of like, Nirvana for children, and it'd be like lullaby versions of, or other bands like that. But as they got older, they got me into music. So they'd listen to Katy Perry and the people from like the late 2000s, early 2010s. And it kept me connected to the music that's still happening.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's great when it works both ways, right?
Yeah.
So have you ever been in a caregiving situation where you've taken care of a loved one and music has had some impact or played a role?
Not directly. My dad told me a story that when his father was dying, he was at his bedside singing to him, which would make sense. But no, I haven't had to, fortunately take care of anybody like that.
Well, that's good in many ways. So let me, these are more mood related. So if you feel overwhelmed, do you have a particular type of music that you listen to calm you down?
Yeah, music that's as loud and heavy as possible. I want the music to overwhelm my feeling of being overwhelmed. So if it's more frenetic than my insides, it makes me feel like I'm okay. You know.
Got it. And would that apply to kind of these other questions, like when you need to relax? Same thing.
Kind of. I mean, for me, it's jazz. It's and not smooth jazz, like straight ahead jazz. My favorite era would be 50s through 70s, probably. You know, anything from there that gets me relaxed every time.
How about when you feel like celebrating? What's your go-to?
Oh, for me, it's U2. It's this band from Britain called the Wombats. Who've been around for over 20 years now. One of my favorites. Everything they do makes me feel up. But the thing that makes me feel most like I'm celebrating is if I'm with somebody and there's something that they like that we both like, sharing that with them, it gives me tingles.
Yeah, sharing music with others is absolutely the best. Well, you made it through the lightning round. So, being do you have any recommendations for further exploration into music appreciation or understanding for our listeners?
So I do some of my podcast episodes on books, and two of them that just blew me away for different reasons. There's a guy, a journalist, his name is, I think it's pronounced Kelafasana, but the name of the book is Major Labels. And he basically breaks down genre by genre the music that he came to know and love and cover from pretty much the 80s through, or even before the 80s. And he shed insight on things like pop music was not an actual separate genre until the 80s. And, things like it developed its codification by then, just things that amaze me. But the second book, I think, which connects a lot to what you're doing, is a guy named Nolan Gasser, who worked on the music genome project for Pandora when it was developing. And he wrote a book called, and he's a composer too, he wrote a book called Why You Like It, The Science and Culture of Musical Taste. And he goes through different profiles of people. Well, this kind of person would tend to like this kind of music, and he breaks it down scientifically. And yeah, it was fascinating and very big.
That's awesome. And did that first book influence kind of the name of your podcast?
I discovered it after I started the podcast, but that's what I'm finding is both artists and fortunately now some journalists are catching on to the fact that people prefer that music is not so strictly set into one genre or another, because then they don't feel like they need to stay in their lane. They can listen to whatever they want or create whatever they want.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously you've been a loyal supporter of what we're doing here at Sage Stream and our work, and have chipped in being a co-host and substitute host. Much appreciated. Why do you think Sage Stream is important?
I mean, I kind of want to repeat some of what I said before, which is we are, and you are in particular, and all the artists are catering to people who don't necessarily have access to live performances or live presentations and the other things. When I hosted once, when the woman did like cosmology and all that stuff, it was absolutely incredible. And to be able to take this audience that is captive and sometimes in ways they don't want to be, and bring the world to them. I mean, there's almost nothing more important.
Well, thank you for that. Well, there you go. Nick DeMatteo, nickdematteo.com, Rec Music. Thank you for being a guest on Your Brain on Music. It's greatly appreciated.
Thank you for having me. It was a real pleasure talking to you.
Here's this episode's tip for incorporating music into your everyday life for health and wellness, brought to you from Connie Tomaino, the co-founder and executive director of the Institute for Music and Neurologic Function.
Here's a good tip to help you if you have sleep problems or trouble falling to sleep. One of the things we know about music is that rhythm entrains how our mind works and how our body responds. And so we know that slow rhythms actually slow down our mind, slow down the brain activity in our mind, and puts us into a more relaxed state. And so think about songs that help you feel relaxed and create a playlist that you play for a few minutes before, while you're in bed, before you want to fall asleep. And that should help put you into a better state of mind as well as a more relaxed state. And that should ease you into a better sleep.
Here is this week's listener's musical memory.
My name is James Skarnikat. I entertain seniors professionally in long-term care and retirement homes all across Canada. I'm a contractor to rec therapy departments coast to coast, and I have a long history in the senior living industry. I used to be a nutritional manager, and I jumped to recreation. Well, it was 14 years ago exactly that I switched to recreation, and I've been providing music programs coast to coast professionally ever since. And it's been probably the most heartwarming experience of my life. And I want to tell the brief story about the time when this fire was lit underneath me. I credit a fella, an older fella in a long-term care home. His name was Curly, and it was apparently his name because of his once curly hair, which he no longer had. And the first time I met Curly, I entered the room. It was just a small long-term care home with a small recreation room, and there he sat in the front row in his wheelchair, basically unresponsive. And even the staff right away said, "Don't worry about Curly, he doesn't react, and just ignore him." So I launched into my program, starting a little bit soft as I always do, and then I build it up slowly and gradually, just so I don't shock the residents, and always mindful of my volume and so on. But Curly sat in front of me, and he seemed to be pretty sluggish, just slumbering away. But as I kept performing and playing these toe-tapping tunes from Charlie Pride and Hank Williams and whatever, he kind of perked up. He suddenly started watching the program, and he had on his lap a Kleenex box. And it wasn't long. He started tapping to the rhythm on that Kleenex box, and he started singing along just in his weak little voice. And the staff were passing by the hallway, and they were looking in the door, and one even remarked, "We've never seen him do that before." And Curly just perked right up. It was a real eye-opening moment to how music can stimulate somebody that is tired and in a torpor. But I visited there regularly going forward, and I played there almost every month at that time. The place is closed now. It was an older facility, but Curly was always singing a song, humming this melody. I didn't know what it was. And about 3 or 4 programs later, he just happened to have a family member in the room, and she knew what the song was. It was called "When I Grow Too Old to Dream," a 1930s classic, a beautiful song. So once I knew what the melody was, I immediately went home, researched the song, printed the lyrics, prepared it. And the next time I was there, I played it for Curly, and the response was incredible. He was singing along. I played it for him several times, that program. I played it every program subsequently, even at Christmas time. After Jingle Bells, I'd play when I'm too old to dream, and I just couldn't not play it for dear Curly. And he was in my audience for a couple of years, always a little bit more sluggish and a little more slow. And then sadly, one day, as to be expected, I arrived for another concert, and he was no longer seated in the room. And I knew that he had, let's just say, moved on. But I credit Curly for teaching me not only that song, but teaching me the value of these songs that seniors love, how important it is to their spirits, to their souls, to their energy, to their mental health, just the reverie and the memories that are created as they get to hear these great old songs. And it's so important that they be surrounded by the music that they recognize. So thank you, Curly, for teaching me the value of music for seniors.
Your Brain on Music was written, produced, and created by me, Anthony Cirillo, with original music from Ariel Soul, a great harpist. You can find him at arielsoul.com, arielsol.com. Please subscribe to our group, Your Brain on Music, on Facebook. And of course, you can download this podcast from all of the typical and normal podcast providers. So we hope you subscribe to our podcast and listen to it. We'll be featuring many great artists and neuroscientists talking about what happens in your brain when music is played. Until next time, thanks a lot.